This is Jerome Corsi. Today is Monday. It's December 2nd, 2024. Thank you for joining us on thetruthcentral.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. You can follow me on X at CorsiJerome1, and you can follow me on Substack at JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. Please follow us again on gods5stones.com. We're going to be publishing a new Andrew Paquette paper this week on California. Now, Paquette has done an analysis, and by the way, that's God's, G-O-D, no apostrophe the S, F-I-V-E spelled out, the number spelled out, and stones is plural, gods5stones.com. Now, the California study which he has done has been in this really controversial precinct, which is the California's 28th district. And what he's found is very highly technical, but it looks like he's done an analysis for the first time of clone detection methodology, really understanding how the clones are picked and how they're hidden. So it's an important paper. And it's going to lead me into a discussion that we're now in the process, as we are in the transition right now, and we're seeing that Kash Patel has been named to head the FBI. Well, I've known Kash Patel for many years, and I have respect him greatly, and I think he's going to be a great choice. I also think we can now work with Kash Patel because we're going to pursue, with gods5stones.com, criminal charges on voter fraud. And it's going to go not only into the 2024 election, but also the 2020 election, and maybe even the 2022 election. And what I'm finding is that a lot of, even this year, while what we did on finding these algorithms, and the algorithms are secret codes that are embedded by somebody, some organization, in the state board of election voter registration databases, the official database the state uses to allow people to vote. And the algorithms permit the creation of false records and the hiding of those records, kind of like a card marking scheme, mathematically. And those records then can be, by the criminals, pulled out and voted whenever they decide to do so. So it explains a lot of the patterns you see where the counting stops and the counting continues and it continues and it continues until the Democrats get enough votes to win. Then they cut it off and certify the election without allowing any inspection of the ballots that were suddenly produced. Well, a lot of those ballots, we believe, are produced by the algorithms, and we want to prove whether that's true or not. And I think with Paquette's work and the work we've done in various states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, we now got a handle on the methodology that will allow us to find votes that were cloned, that were voted in these schemes, and tie them back to a mail-in ballot scheme where the ballots are not printed, they're just requested in the computer. Now, it's going to be a little bit complicated, but I think we've got a methodology to do it, and we're definitely going to pursue it. So God's Five Stones is still in business. If anything, we're planning to be more active now than ever. Now that we've won the election and we prevented the steal in the battleground states, as you saw even in a state like Pennsylvania, there were trucks full of ballots arriving late at night. So the Democrats were planning to use the scheme again. But once we'd exposed it, once Andrew Paquette had found it, then it became impossible for the Democrats to use the scheme without getting caught. Well, now they're going to get caught. I think we're going to press for treason charges because I think some of these people were actively intending to destroy voter integrity because I'm maintaining the Democratic Party has transitioned first into a communist party with neo-Marxist and cultural Maoist tendencies. Also happy to have Antifa and Black Lives Matter for Anarchy. That's my book, which I wrote, which is explains this whole progression from neo-Marxism, from Marx through neo-Marxism, through cultural Maoism into anarchy. In fact, the book is entitled The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy. And the subtitle is Exposing critical identity lies in an age of disinformation. So critical justice lies. So therefore, I think we're at a tipping point here where we're going to be able once and forever, and I agree with Kash Patel, he says he's going to turn the Hoover building into a museum, get all these agents out in the field catching real criminals. Maybe some of the criminals you ought to catch start with the people in the Justice Department. And there's quite a few I'd like to point out to them you ought to go after. Okay, now the big news today is that over the weekend, Biden decided he would pardon his son. Well, I thought his son didn't need a pardon. Didn't we have something like 50 intelligence agents tell us that his laptop was just Russian disinformation? Is there anybody out there but me sick of Russian disinformation? The Democrats they were enamored with Russia from 1917 on, as long as it was communist. Then the minute the Berlin Wall came down and Russia renounced communism, the Democrats decided they needed to go to war and restore communism. Well, now the Democratic Party, being as it is a treasonous party, wants to destroy the Constitution. And I think we can get these Justice Department people and reemploy them somewhere else in the private economy. Maybe they can drive trucks or something, whatever they do. But they need to be out of law enforcement because they're not enforcing the law. They're enforcing censorship and political suppression of free speech and all other things antithetical to the Constitution. Now, think about this pardon is that Joe Biden, while he was running for president and while he thought he was running for president, said he would never pardon his son. We've got his spokesperson who, thank goodness, is about to go with the whole Biden group. Let's hear how she constantly denied this. And she was all very good at double talk. Listen to her.
The president would not pardon or commute the sentence for his son, Hunter. I can make sure that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying it would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no. And I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
Lies, lies, and damn lies. I'm going to be really happy to get rid of her because she's just a mouthpiece for double talk. Can't get a straight answer out of her, just like Kamala Harris. She can talk for 10 minutes and she hasn't said anything. Platitudes. Okay, so these people are evil, and I think what was done was stealing tremendous amounts of money out of Ukraine. I think it should be investigated and indicted. I think we were involved in money laundering at a massive scale. I believe it involved the CIA in both the drug trade on the border and the sex trade. Clearly, Hunter Biden was involved in the sex trade and the drug trade and every other trade that he can figure out how to do. And, having sex with members of his family, underage girls, prostitutes, whomever, and taking pictures of it, putting it on his laptop, forgetting he had his laptop dropped off for service. And Joe Biden, who's suffering obvious mental deformity of some kind or other. I don't know what the infirmity is, but it's something. And so therefore, these two are soon to be gone. By the way, I'm reading Woodward's book. I don't know why I'm bothering to read Woodward's book, but it's the book on war. I'll show you. Right here. And Woodward constantly, it's supposed to be an inside, how Trump was dealing with Ukraine. And I just want to see how many lies they could tell. But they tell a lot. He constantly repeats, Woodward, who's nothing but a CIA mouthpiece, so never has been anything but that. Donald Trump is constantly saying that there was no voter fraud in 2020. So this is on page 38, chapter 7. His chapters tend to be about a page long. Said, I wouldn't be surprised, he's quoting Trump, I wouldn't be surprised if they found thousands and thousands and thousands of votes. Trump yelled to a crowd at Mar-a-Lago, his lavish estate in Palm Beach, Florida. This was a rigged election. Everybody knows it. Once audits, and here's Woodward writing, once audits of the election counts were completed in key states like Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona this summer, Trump said he would make his return to the Oval Office. He believed if he could get a swing state to find that he had actually won the state, then all the other states he lost would have to begin probes. If a thief robs a jewelry store of all of its diamonds, the diamonds must be returned, Trump said in a statement in May referring to the 2020 election. But more than 60 court cases, dozens of investigations, audits, and ballot recounts in numerous states found no evidence of widespread fraud. Again and again, the validity of the 2020 election result was upheld. Well, Woodward, that's just complete BS. And you ought to be indicted for writing this kind of crap. You know, if you want to be a propagandist, just go join the CIA, or better yet, did you ever leave the CIA? I think Watergate needs re-examination as a coup d'etat. And your great role as a journalist is questioned when you will not even consider the possibility that there may have been voter fraud in 2020. Now, when it's proven that there was voter fraud and the algorithms are there, and they've been there since 2007 in some cases, and 2004 in others, how many elections? We don't know how many elections were won by the algorithms, not by the voters. So, Woodward, I think you're going to have a lot of explaining to do. And this book, you know, it's just, to me, it's an exercise in propaganda. Now, it's published in 2024. And so it goes all the way through discussing, you know, the Hamas attack and, you know, the beginning of the campaign. And it's just going to be fascinating to get through this book, as hard as it may be, given the amount of propaganda I'm going to be subject to, just reading it. But the point is, it's part of the dialogue here of this era that the CIA puts out these talking points, and so-called journalists like Woodward, who has an intelligence background, it just takes their propaganda and puts it as if it were true, uncritically true, such that if you believed anything else, you were crazy. It's like he ridicules Trump when I think Trump was absolutely right that the 2020 election was stolen. I think there's going to be evidence of it. And I don't think for questioning whether it was stolen, we should go to prison. That's the deep state. Now, I'm thinking about writing a book on the case for indicting the deep state. And this is, I think, needed because Prakash Patel is going to need some guidelines, outlines, etc., to know where all the bodies are, although I'm sure he's got a very good idea himself. As he gets into it, he's going to find more. But I was in the middle of the Russian collusion because, if you recall, and I wrote a book on it. Let me pull that book. Hold on. Yeah, I pulled it off the shelf here. My book, Coup d'etat, exposing deep state treason and the plan to re-elect President Trump. I wrote that just before the 2020 election. And they wanted to put me in prison because they thought I was the last time I could tie Donald Trump to Julian Assange, and that would have been their way to put me in prison. They said I'd go before a jury that would hate me in Washington, D.C. They put me in prison the rest of my life. Or I could just plead to a deal and say that, no, I had a tie with Julian Assange. I just didn't want to expose it to do any damage to Donald Trump or Roger Stone. But that wasn't the case, and I refused to take their plea deal. So go ahead and put me in prison the rest of my life. I will not go before God and a judge and swear to a lie to stay out of prison. This book is suddenly going to become relevant again. And I'm going to go in detail with what I've shown in here in terms of how the CIA had penetrated into the Department of Justice, which created a counterintelligence investigation unit, which put them in the intelligence gathering business. Well, if we have a CIA, why do we need intelligence gathering in the Justice Department? That blurs the line between whether the Justice Department is now an international or a national organization. Justice Department's free to do counterintelligence investigations against citizens, going to get FISA court approval. We've lost a lot of freedoms. Okay, let's go on to some other stories I want to cover today. Trump is putting together his cabinet, and he looks to be doing a very good job of it. I think he, there'll be some that people are going to question, and some that people are going to say, well, that's not a good choice, and this is not a good choice, etc. But I think in general, Trump is doing a very good job. Okay, now if we take a hard look at some of the stories going on, I want to kind of set this up so that we, get what's going on during the transition. I was very interested to see that, what's going on with China. China is now saying that they're not necessarily going to buy cheap Iranian oil because they're concerned after receiving guidance from the U.S. State Department that sanctions wouldn't be enforced by the Biden administration. Well, that gave China a green light to start buying Iranian crude, which pumped money into Iran for terrorism. But when the government changed with Trump coming in, and Trump's already having a great influence, just announcing, his appointments, that if China gets a 60% tariff on it, well, the government is probably not going to buy oil from Iran because they're going to want some leverage here to not get their economy destroyed. And Trump, with a tariff about that amount, would, within a year or two, destroy China. Russia's also not in great economic shape. And if Trump puts sanctions on Russia, he could severely cripple the economy. Russia itself, let's see how the ruble is doing these days. Let's see. So the ruble is struggling. Trump is, I think, the war is taking a toll on Russia. And I'm going to start covering that to a larger extent. The sanctions that Gazprom has been experiencing have disrupted Russia's oil transactions. Russia's still trying to conduct oil transactions with European nations through intermediaries, and that's been allowed. But they also have been diverting energy to India and to China. But again, it's extremely costly to keep this kind of a military in the field. And I think with China saying, well, maybe we better work with Trump, I'm not sure that this isn't going to change whether or not China is going to be belligerent in Taiwan. So the ruble had plunged. This is an article that was out today, actually, that exceeding 80 to the dollar for the first time ever. The slump in oil prices, now at $28 a barrel, compared with over 100 2 years ago, has dragged Russia's currency down with it. The ruble plunged to new lows today, exceeding 80 to the US dollar for the first time ever. The slump in oil prices, now at $28 per barrel, compared with over 100 2 years ago, has dragged Russia's economy down. And the commodity crash has created the most painful recession in Russia since the 2008 financial crisis, with Russia's economy shrinking by about 3.8% in 2015. Russia is now on the brink of financial collapse. With the economic crisis, how will it affect Russia's economy, with Trump talking about imposing sanctions on Russia too? So we're shaping up here to see what the negotiations are going to be like between Trump and Putin and over ending this war. And I think we're getting some indications of what it's going to look like. But again, I don't know that we're going to have a really firm idea until we get a little bit further into it. At any rate, I think Trump is saying he's going to end the war. And I think the terms that are critical to Russia right now, increasingly, that NATO, that Ukraine not go into NATO, that Russia retain, these 3 Crimea, some lease, the long-term lease or security over having Crimea remain in Russian control. That's where Sevastopol is, Russia's naval port. And these 2 eastern provinces, which are largely Russian-speaking. So I think Putin's going to have to make concessions. And so will Trump, I believe, because Trump is not going to be able to have any idea that certainly Zelensky's going to have to come to reality and realize that we're not going to pledge to recover these 2 provinces. They're going to become independent states. There's no way you're going to dislodge Russia from these provinces in the east. Russia probably has 500,000 or 400,000 troops in them right now. And short of nuclear war, you're not going to be able to do anything to get that gone or change it substantially. Now, the negotiator that Trump has appointed, I did some research over the weekend on this, is Keith Kellogg, a former national security advisor and retired lieutenant general in the U.S. military. He's going to be special envoy to Ukraine and Russia. Now, in the initial part of the Ukraine war, Kellogg was very much in favor of saying, just give Ukraine the weapons and they'll destroy Russia. And he was very much of a hawk. Now, he wrote a paper that was published in America First, Russia and Ukraine. Okay, this is a website, americafirstpolicy.com. And his conclusions have changed dramatically because what he is saying now, and I'm taking these as more mature conclusions given that the war now has advanced and Russia has essentially won. And he's saying a prolonged war in Ukraine also risks deepening the alliance between Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, which has been strengthened by the conflict. Iran and North Korea continue to supply Russia with weaponry it needs to wage this war, while China remains a financial partner to Russia to deepen the 2 nations' no-limits partnership. I think that's true. And he's saying that we should have a formal U.S. policy to seek a ceasefire and negotiated settlement of the Ukraine conflict. The United States would continue to arm Ukraine and strengthen its defenses to ensure Russia will make no further advances and will not attack again after a ceasefire peace agreement. Future military aid, however, will require Ukraine to participate in peace talks with Russia. To convince Putin to join the peace talks, President Biden and other NATO leaders should offer to put off NATO membership for Ukraine for an extended period of time. Well, they're not going to do that. And Blinken has been encouraging Ukraine to request early membership right now in NATO, which would mean that this whole idea that Kellogg is advancing wouldn't happen. I don't think that's going to be done. I think increasingly there's a recognition that Trump has scared this deep state to death, as it should be. And even guys like Harari are saying the new world order is dead duck. I think you're going to see a solid rejection across the country of this woke nonsense agenda. I think we're going to see the illegals deported. Trump is going to have to fulfill his campaign promises. And so far with the appointments he's making, he's putting strong people in these positions who I think will carry through. I've been advocating for years that we move the bureaucracy out of Washington. And I finally see Trump is on that theme. I think we should actually move the entire federal bureaucracy to Death Valley and let them have all the solar and wind they want. Because I think it's, again, a corrupt, everything about this government's corrupt. We've learned how to just spend money we don't have and then steal it. We can steal it through Solyndra, where all Obama's buddies get paid. We can steal it through the tax, this whole big bill that Biden passed that was supposedly going to reduce the deficit and end inflation. All it did was create more money for Solyndra 2, which is equally wasted. But I think the solution to Ukraine is to realize that we are entering a multipolar world, and the world's going to be stable if we understand that we're going to have to coexist. It's going to be difficult with Russia, China, and ourselves in this new early phase to begin understanding that we don't want to economically destroy Russia. It becomes dangerous to do that. The same with China. At the same time, we don't want them to be taking advantage of our economy so they can enrich themselves to destroy us. So Donald Trump's imposing of tariffs, I think, is a very, very bold and important move. And I think it's going to set things right. I think jobs are going to come back to the United States. They're going to reopen the Keystone Pipeline. We're going to start developing oil and natural gas. And we're going to be at a much better situation in a very short period of time. I believe Trump will have a fast 100 days. And he's certainly operating much more rapidly than he did in 2016. He knows more people. He's thought about it more. He's realized how rough a place Washington is. And some of the appointments he's making are going to be questionable. But again, let's see how they react when they're in place. But the vast majority of his appointments, I've been very solidly behind. Okay, now a couple of other... Excuse me. I've managed working so hard, I think I've gotten a little bit of the flu back. At any rate, I'm feeling better after Thanksgiving, got some rest. I sure pushed it through the election with these algorithms to get it known as widely as we could, so to stop the steal, and thank God we did stop the steal this time, at least in the presidential race. Okay, one or two more stories I want to cover. It looks to me like the economy in general is now going to have to struggle if we are going to take care of this massive deficit that we've got. Now, Trump, I think, with some initiatives like nuclear energy, with oil and natural gas, can revive the economy. But we're going to have to take drastic measures to get the homeless out of the cities, to get the cities back to work. Got to make them safe again. I was very surprised but pleased to see that Seattle actually increased its police officers, the first net increase in 4 years. I mean, Seattle's gone wacko. It's gone woko. Okay. So after President Trump's been elected, Seattle announced it's seen its first increase in police officers in 4 years. The Seattle Police Department reported a net increase in officers in the last quarter, reversing losses since 2020. Council President Sarah Nelson, I'm sure it's about as woke as you can get, I would be surprised otherwise, attributed the earlier decline to a 2020 pledge by most city council members to have police funding, which led to police officer departures and reduced the force to about 900, well below the 1,400 target. Well, at that level, they can't answer 911 calls, they can't respond, they can't stop crime. 2025-26 budget in Seattle includes $3.2 million to sustain 300 shelter beds, $3.5 million for 23 new care centers, $14.5 million for health initiatives. Well, all those are good humanitarian efforts, but they're going to encourage the homeless to stick around. Let's see how much the homeless stick around once the fentanyl is gone. And by the way, all these hotels like the New York Roosevelt Hotel, which is occupied the whole city block in New York, used to be a fashionable hotel. Now it's a dump. It's been used by the migrants. And of course, the government's paying for them. Well, the Pakistani government owns that hotel. Now the Pakistani government's going to throw them out and make them condominiums. Pakistanis own that hotel because of an International Monetary Fund deal. And of course, what's the International Monetary Fund doing in the United States, selling our hotels to Pakistanis? These are the kinds of, why are our ports being managed by Chinese? Why are Chinese buying up farmland? Why are we thinking about giving the United Nations World Health Organization power to become a dictatorship on the next pandemic? We have a lot of things to fix here. And that Biden is going to pardon his son is a key to me that the Biden administration's running for the hills. They're going to try to hide as quickly as they can. And Trump is going to move the bureaucracy out of Washington, and he's going to close some different departments. I think Elon Musk is going to take care of that and work very hard to do it. I'm very pleased to see Robert Kennedy coming into the health organizations. A lot of this just money being spent with abandon and stolen by those who are close to the Bidens and the Clintons. We've had a big theft of the United States Treasury going on, where we've gone from like about a $3.9 trillion deficit in 1990 to 36 going to $37 trillion. It's unsustainable. And it's time for this woke to go away. It's time for us to recover America for an America First agenda, to restore God, and to restore national defense. We don't need any more admirals in dresses. And this whole woke and the transgender and the military just degrades the military ability to fight. It's extremely costly. And what are we doing running transgender parade? We'd be better off running a transgender parade down Fifth Avenue than we would fighting a war. And with the conflicts that are going on, we're going to have to go back to Reagan's peace through strength. We're, I think, behind now in the nuclear arms race, with Russia having these new missiles, which may be kinetic energy missiles, and intercontinental ballistic missiles that are hypersonic in speed. Ours are not as fast as Russia's. Ours are not Mach 5, 6, 7. Russia's apparently are. That's, Russia could be, again, edging towards a first strike capability, which has always been the unspoken aim of the nuclear policy of the United States, whether we wanted to admit it or not. Craig, do you have any comments as we wrap up?
Well, what you're seeing is the Trump effect, scaring the crap out of the deep state. Can I say crap on the air here? Anyway,
Yes, you can. It's okay.
You're watching the Trump effect scare the dung out of the deep state. Well, you're also seeing what you're talking about is what's happening internationally and, of course, behind the scenes, but also on the surface here, you're watching businesses dump DEI. The fad is gone. The whole political correctness DEI fad is gone, at least for the next 4, possibly 8 to 12 years. But
hopefully forever.
Right. We'd like to see that. Although in Europe, it's not going to go away. That's a whole different bird over there.
Well, Europe's going to have to collapse first before it goes away. And
they're trying.
The net zero policy in Great Britain and the
Right.
increase in immigration, especially Muslim immigration, and all of the Muslim immigration is doing across Europe to radicalize it and create gang violence. And we've got to get the Venezuelan gangs out of the United States as well.
James Carville even said the wokeness, this DEI stuff, ruined the Democrat Party's brand. And that's going to kill them. If they're doing what the neocons did to the Republicans back in the late 2000s.
Except this is worse because it's really endemic to their whole philosophy.
Exactly.
And so therefore, this is a logical progression of their thinking. So you're not going to get it out of them because they don't believe in God. They believe that whatever you decide is your reality, your subjective reality, is truth. And so we have to celebrate that your sex is that of some animal who lived 500 years ago and was a transgender animal. We have to celebrate that. And these people should be sent off to a sanitarium. They should be, they're basically mentally unstable. That's schizophrenia, private ideology.
And we shouldn't have to celebrate everything. I mean, gosh, I read weird books sometimes, right? Should that be celebrated? I mean, no, I just want to live my life. That's all. I just want to read something different once in a while. Or, but again, people do things, people are different, but let's not just celebrate everything somebody else does because a bunch of people feel guilty. Oh, by the way, did you hear this thing about the Commanders bringing the Indian logo back?
Yeah, I think that's great, and
Yeah.
I hope they call them the Redskins again. I like to see the Cleveland, Guardians, which are named after a bridge, go back to the Cleveland Indians again.
That would have been much better. In fact, it's arguable that Cleveland had the first Native American player on its team. Legend has it that's why they named it the Indians, although there are also other thoughts about it. Was Chief Sokolexis, who played for the old Cleveland Spiders. Well,
Well, again, these are the kinds of things that we should be able to handle. And it doesn't mean it's racist because they're called the Indians.
Yes.
It's traditional in sports. It's been a tradition that's been around for now more than 100 years.
Well, it's usually some white guy who's insulted anyway, who's offended. It's barely ever the natives. It's almost always, to a man, someone guilty white or white knight type white liberal.
I was surprised to see how many of the Indian voters voted for Trump this time. Indians, Orthodox Jews, Christians in greater numbers, Catholics, half of the Hispanic men. I mean, you could not have done more damage to the Democratic Party than Obama and his whole cabal. Valerie Jarrett, thank you very much. Susan Rice.
Yeah,
the Ukrainian State Department, Vidman, and all these other.
Yeah, apparently they might go after Vindman. The administration might go after.
I think they should. And
Yeah.
that's going to be some of the things I'm going to be going after myself.
That would be nice. People should learn. Again, I'm not talking about. People should speak up when they see something wrong. But if you're going to go with secondhand information and roll that into what could have been or what was most likely a lie, that's treasonous because you're there just to subvert an administration, almost a let's say stealth insurrection, if you will.
Well, and in fact, the insurrection was all the impeachment trials against Donald Trump.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it was not the J6ers. And by the way, if Biden's going to give a blanket pardon to his crooked son, whose morals bear nothing to be admired.
Right.
What about the J6ers who are 4 years in prison without a trial?
Agreed. They are political prisoners. I was thinking about that. If Hunter Biden gets pardoned, well, good. When Trump gets in, let's pardon all the January 6th
That's a good idea.
Protesters. Let's pardon Steve Bannon. Although I'm pretty sure he's going to wear that conviction with pride anyway. It's going to be good for him. Navarro, he should be pardoned. People like that.
Well, we've got to write a lot of things at this point because we've suffered a lot of lies and injustice, and mainstream media needs to suffer consequences too. So the Trump election this time was really game changing, and it's already making game changing impacts. And they're still 2 months out from being in office.
Exactly.
Okay, this is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Today it's Monday. It's December 2nd. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. And I encourage everybody in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14 to get on their knees and ask God's forgiveness for letting the country get to this moral depravity, killing so many babies in the womb with Roe v. Wade, all the taking God out of the schools and everything else we've done. It's time to right this ship and come back to God and come back to the constitutional values that are bequeathed to us by God, and they're inalienable, not granted by the state. Thank you very much, Kamala Harris. Dr. Jerome Corsi will be back tomorrow. With regards to the economy and what I see coming, I do want to emphasize our sponsor on Swiss America. And if Chris will show you this free book you can get, I think it's going to be very timely. The number to get this book, how the coming global crash is going to create an historic gold rush. The number is 1-800-519-6268. I'm going to repeat that, 1-800-519-6268. Gold today is at $2,635 an ounce. Really a buying opportunity. Silver's at $30.09 an ounce. These are going to go up. And the economic disruption we're going to see will be, I believe, after Trump takes office. And that's when the international economy will begin to tank. Swiss America also has this Walking Liberty $50 offer where you can get up to 250 of these coins. It's a first-time introductory offer. They're about 99.99% silver, and you can get them at cost, really. It's a good deal. I would encourage you to get some. And finally, get some of your IRA money into a self-directed IRA and put it in gold and silver. Swiss America, just call them up. They'll help you set up a self-directed IRA account according to the rules. They'll custodian for that. And then your gold and silver will be held physically by a Delaware trust in your name, and you will have a Lloyd's bank account guarantee, Lloyd's guarantee insurance policy on the value of that gold and silver. Visit Swiss America. They're an important partner, and they're going to be even more important partner to us in 2025. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.